It's Kraven o'clock, which means it's time for my Kraven the Hunter review. Kraven the Hunter is a comic book film and is supposedly the final installment in Sony's Spider-Man-less Spider-Man universe. It's directed by J.C. Shandor and stars Aaron Taylor Johnson as Kraven. It's no secret that the Sonyverse has not been well received beyond the memes. It's been a very bumpy ride since that first Venom movie, but while Kraven the Hunter isn't a good movie, at the same time, I didn't totally hate it either. I don't know, maybe these movies have finally rotted through to my brain. Even though this means very little, I actually think this is one of the better Sonyverse installments. But mainly, it's still a whole lot of wasted potential. It's got a solid group of actors joining Aaron Taylor Johnson, such as Russell Crowe, Ariana DeBose, Fred Heschinger, Alessandro Nivola, and Christopher Abbott. But even with all that talent, this movie is not particularly well acted. And that's on top of having a poor script, too many flat characters, bad CGI, awful ADR, as well as terrible editing. The direction and tone are all over the place too. And quite frankly, I've grown tired of these movies taking Spider-Man villains and turning them into vigilante anti-heroes. It works for Venom, but that's about it. And there were so many occasions during this movie where I completely forgot that this is attached to the world of Spider-Man. With all that being said though, I would still rather watch Kraven the Hunter over Morbius, Madam Web, and 2 out of the 3 Venom films any day. For one, I do respect it for committing to the R rating. And while the action most of the time lacks suspense and tension, it's still vicious in a brutally fun way. I would also be remiss if I did not acknowledge that this movie is really funny and cheesy. There's many unintentionally hilarious moments that had me cracking up, a few intentional ones too. And if there's one person who gleefully dives into the goofy nature of this movie, it's Alessandro Nivola as the Rhino. It's such a silly and strange performance that I was unironically entertained by. However, I was impressed most of all by Kraven the Hunter's cinematography. This is by no means the most visually impressive comic book movie out there, but it's also nowhere near as visually offensive as some MCU movies are. There are actually some cool shots with proper color grading and lighting. There were instances where I thought this movie looked better than Deadpool and Wolverine. It would be refreshing if the rest of this movie wasn't so mediocre. Overall, Kraven the Hunter doesn't end the Sonyverse with a whimper, but rather a faint roar. It undeniably has a little bit more of a bite than its predecessors, but not enough for me to want this bizarre franchise to have any more mileage. I give Kraven the Hunter a 2.5 out of 5.